everybody, I am Danny Otto. Welcome into another episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just wanted to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 7 of the She-Hulk series. So if you haven't seen that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney Plus, check that out, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Joining with me to break down everything from episode 7 of the She-Hulk series, it's Jon Jon Rico!
Hey, I'm hurting for a yurtin.
Yes, that's all I want to hear is let's talk about like yurts and group therapy, the group therapy sessions and everything like that. Yes. So, I mean, that leads perfectly right into my instant reactions for episode 7 and references. I have to say this first and foremost because I immediately thought of this when we got the group therapy session. And we have like these smaller named villains and we have like Abomination kind of running it and everything. All I could think of.
And I say, Zangief, you are a bad guy. But this does not mean you're a bad guy.
Just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you have to be a bad guy.
Right, yeah.
And that's all I could think of. It was perfect. I loved that scene, and that's immediately what I thought of for the retreat and for the group therapy session and stuff. So I had to mention that first and foremost. I really liked this episode. I know, look, it's another non-Daredevil episode, and I know a lot of fans are waiting for Daredevil now that it's been teased a bunch of times. But I was okay with this episode. I really enjoyed it for what it was. And I have to say, I have never related to a fictional character, a superhero in general, more so than the progression from Jen and Josh beginning dating to her getting ghosted. And what I mean by this is it's all smiles and sunshine, and they're both like, yeah, I can't wait to see you. Everybody's really happy. Everyone's like super like flirty, and I can't wait to hang out next. And they're seeing each other as often as they can. And then we get the morning after. Jen is still in a really good mood, and she's still super happy and everything. And so she sends a text and says, that was fun. I can't stop smiling. Which to me seems like something that, I would send. And to which she stop looking at me like that. To which she gets nothing. And we just have this agony that I feel like if it's not everyone, I will go out on a limb and say it's 100% me.
Emotional damage.
Waiting for any kind of response. Not being super needy, but just sending a text and then going, well, I can't send another one because I just sent one. And then waiting to see if now a day's gone by. Should I send another one? What should I do? Like, should I sit here and wait? I have never connected more and just felt the feelings of a character in the MCU more than this moment right here when she's just sitting there staring at her phone for days, wondering if Josh is ever going to answer. And we will get to the reason why Josh didn't answer later on in this video. But I just had to go on the record to say that and just say I feel so connected to Jen right now. But Rico, what were some of your instant reactions to episode 7?
Yeah, okay, so I thought this was like a decent episode. So one of the things that kind of bugs me about the show is how the main kind of like Marvel story of this is really we're only getting snippets of it in the last like 30 seconds of the episode, and we only have 2 episodes left. So I'm kind of curious to see how overall it's going to be handled. I'll get more into that a little bit later. But there were some things I did like about this episode. I would say this episode felt more like a bottle episode, like you were talking about last week in terms of the wedding. This one was really like just about Jen. at the retreat, pretty much like outside, like setting up her and Josh and all that. Like we didn't get anything with her friends, So it's like
Yeah.
this is all about Jen. So this really felt more like the bottle episode that you were talking about last week, in my opinion. And I like that because it was great to see Blonsky back, kind of bringing it back into like that. Of the first few episodes where we were with him in his parole hearing and stuff like that. So bringing it all back to that first part of the season. And then, but another thing I really liked was when she's sitting in on the therapy session because she needs to get the cell reception. One of the wrecking crew members walks in, and I believe it's Wrecker from the comics, who the one who carries the crowbar. And she instantly wants to get at him, and then she goes, "Wait, this guy! If you don't remember who he is, let me give him his own previously on." Like,
Yeah.
they did the whole shtick with the wrecking crew and stuff like that, going back and all that, which is really funny.
Previously on this guy.
I thought that was a really clever way to kind of handle that whole thing because when I first saw him, like, and then it clicked when, of course, when she did that. So I was like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, no, I know exactly who that is now. So I actually thought that was really well done. But yeah, I really it just felt very much like the sitcom goofiness of the show more so than the Marvel Cinematic Universe based story stuff. So I'm ready for that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, and I'm right there with you. I will say something that I watched some other recaps before we recorded ours. I will say this: some of the other creators have had some really good points, and look, it's fine if you don't like the series, and it's fine if like you have valid reasons for not liking the series and for wanting stuff. But there are a lot of people out there that don't like the series because Daredevil's not here yet, type of thing. And like, there's some like just weird ways to say reasons for not liking the series. But one creator I watched that I do watch on a regular basis, and I really don't remember his name, and I feel really bad about this. But what he said today in his recap was that he really likes how they've written Jen's character. Like they've nailed Jen as a character, and have had her develop as a character really well and stuff like that. So he loves that, but he feels the same way as you, where he wants to have Jen in these main MCU storylines and moments and stuff like that. So he's almost looking past this project already and is really excited to see this character of Jen in other stuff. So he's thinking of,
I mentioned that I think a week or two ago. Like I'm excited to see how she's handled by another director or
right.
Another pair of hands, basically, to see how she's actually used on a bigger scale and like put to a purpose that kind of fits her into this bigger MCU world.
Right.
Yeah.
And another thing you were mentioning is like the other retreat, the retreat members and the group therapy members and stuff. And I couldn't find a video clip for this, but I had to reenact it because it was one of my favorite parts. So it was when they were talking, when she was finally spilling her guts about Josh and how like, he left her on red and has ghosted her. And so then we get all of the characters throwing in and go, screw this guy, where does he live? And then it's like, Josh has made an enemy of this entire group. Let's kill him. He's got to die. Yeah. Tonight we ride. I just loved that. I was like, who in the world has never been like on the receiving end of being dumped or being ghosted and didn't want to just have a group of people completely just on their side like this? And I was like, this is the dream. This is the dream, to just have a room full of people that are just like, yeah, this person's horrible. Let's find out where he lives. And I just thought that was hilarious, and it was worth reenacting. It was worth mentioning. I thought it was funny. It was one of my favorite parts of the entire episode. But Rico, you want to get to some big takeaways?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome! All right, I'm gonna kick us off with big takeaways. I really only have one, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, for the first time in a long time, boom, big reveal.
Bada boom.
I was right. Josh is working with Hulk King. Josh is, part of this group. I don't know if he's like the ex-Wrecking Crew member that I was kind of saying I think he might be, but he's definitely working with the Hulk King. He's definitely, the one who's going to steal Jen's blood if he hasn't already stole it. Like, we did like 100% confirmation about that. We did have some stuff at the end. He's copying something from her phone. We did get this, and we were talking about this. Neither one of us are really sure exactly what he's copying. So that's the only thing that made me think maybe he hasn't already stolen her blood, is maybe he's copying like her daily schedule to give it to somebody else, like a different henchman group that can, surround her with those giant needles that, could potentially go through She-Hulk's skin. That's the only thing I could think about that. But then we did get this at the end where he is texting Hulk King and it's basically referring to the blood and saying either he's got it already or that it's, it's going to happen. It's good.
Yeah,
We're good to
the
go.
speaking in emojis thing. So I was like, I can't decipher this.
I know.
It looks like it's easiest to figure out, but I don't think I know what he's still saying.
Yeah, I don't know either. All we got from that is that we were right. Josh is working with the enemy, the overarching storyline, and we can.
He was
move
too
forward.
good to be true.
Exactly. Which is why Josh is a bad guy. He's not with those group therapy people who are bad guys, but not bad guys. Josh is just straight up a bad guy.
Yeah.
if you get what I'm saying. Anyway, that was my biggest takeaway from this episode. Rico, what were some of your takeaways from this episode?
Okay, so I guess going back more into the therapy session stuff is I actually really like the way that the show is kind of bringing in these kind of obscure, low C-list kind of characters like El Aguila, Porcupine, Manbull, Saracen. Like all these guys are pretty cool. Even seeing Wrecker coming back was really cool, and him talking about his magic crowbar and all that. But yeah, like Blonsky, just him and his little band of little minor villains stuff. That is a kind of a cool. You know what it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of like Jack and then like the LARPers in Hawkeye. It kind of gives me that same vibe but it fits in this show because that's what the tone of what the show is going for. It's like that. In Hawkeye, I wasn't sure if it fit, but then it grew on me as it went along, I thought, in my opinion. And the way that Hawkeye played off of them was really funny as well. But I really like the way the show is kind of given more attention to like the lesser known characters that we're not going to see in like big stories, of course, but like we don't have to just see them get beat up by heroes all the time too. We could just see them outliving as people. And I think the Matador dude El Aguila is supposed to be a mutant in the comics, so I wonder if he's a mutant here in the MCU as well. So I wonder if we're just sprinkling in mutants without people really knowing until they finally decide to drop like the word mutant in a bigger scale in the franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be a smart way to do it is just to be like these people with mutations, as it was referred to in Miss Marvel, have just been around, and they're just, most of them are just street level, either villains or heroes, vigilantes, what have you. And then later, when mutant, the term is brought more into the forefront, then it's just been like, oh, we've seen these characters already type of thing. So, it's just, they didn't have a name for them already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe type of thing. I think it's a really smart way to do it.
Yeah, and now we know Namor is going to be a mutant too.
Exactly.
In Black Panther. So it's like, again, we're slowly getting the bigger name mutants coming out there, but then we're getting like sprinkled in those little, because mutants are everywhere in the Marvel comics. Like they're just living amongst people because it's just like, there's like regular people. So the fact that we're just going to see them that's kind of what this show has done really well too, is kind of like normalize the idea of superhuman people in the normal world, of course, like with the Asgardian shapeshifter kind of running around LA causing chaos. And now we have like the villains retreat basically that Blonsky's running. I think it's a really fun way to kind of, again, approach these kind of lesser known characters.
What also is really cool, on that note, is that we are seeing, it's not just like good and bad. We're not seeing that. We're seeing, in this episode in particular, we're seeing people make conscious decisions, which is what life is about. You can be a bad person and then consciously, decide, what, that's not who I want to be. I want to be a different person now, type of thing. I want to be better. I want to get better. I want to, be rehabilitated and be a positive person. And we're seeing that also, which is
like Wrecker.
Yeah, which is fleshing out more of like street level and more of like just makes things feel more real. So it's just cool to kind of see that and give it a more of a real tone, of a real feel type of thing to it. So really appreciate that part. Going to some predictions.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so I was kind of going in this a little bit earlier, of course. But I'm the one thing I really want from the show with these last 2 episodes that we're gonna get is I really want this kind of Hulk King storyline to become the main focus of the episodes. Yeah, I know we have 2 episodes left, so we know we were in Daredevil in maybe 1 or 2 episodes, who knows? But so I really hope that like his appearance is tied into that bigger storyline and not its own self-contained story, like the way they've handled everything else in the show so far. Um, and of course, that it looks like it's gonna be the first time we're gonna see her in her super suit, of course, which makes a lot of sense. Keep it for the finale, and then we also get the big cameo at the end too. So it's just like, okay, but how much of this is just going to be the same old that we got the whole season, or are we now going to start forwarding the Marvel story, the Marvel mission? I guess they always because they always do a good job of kind of doing 2 stories in one, like the genre story and then like the Marvel mission. That was kind of like a good way of putting it. Like there's always like the thing they have to like overcome, the villain, the like the big thing that's trying to get at them, right? Here we've only gotten little snippets in like a couple episodes, really. Uh, Even more so with like the Gencia stuff, but the direct stuff towards Jen is
Right.
very few and far between. And I need more of that to really bring the superhero-ness into the show, I guess. But yeah, I think that's really the one thing I want to bring this show to kind of like that middle level, to just bring it into like that. This is pretty good level. Like that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and that's why I'm glad you went first, because I mean, my thoughts and hopes, I guess, for the final 2 episodes are pretty similar to yours. Like I really hope that we get this progression of the main story to kind of put a nice bow on the end of the season, basically a nice tie on the end of the season type of thing, and it doesn't just kind of you know not really finish itself, basically. Like I really hope that we do have this and it leads into something bigger. Like it could lead into Captain America New World Order. There's
Yeah.
multiple projects that this could technically lead into and have some bearing on in the future, and if it's going to, I really hope that it does it in a really good way. I hope it doesn't just fizzle to one of those. I hope it does do a really good build to those. The only other thing that is kind of a prediction that I really had is, you know, I'm wondering if we saw all these characters. I'm wondering if Jen is going to have to talk to some of these characters to find out like who's actually tracking her, who hired the wrecking crew. Like that would have been my first question to the wrecking crew member that was there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that it got asked off screen, and it's just like we're supposed to assume that she asked that question because Jen's smart. Like you know what I mean? Like that doesn't seem like something that she wouldn't think to ask. So I'm wondering if we're just supposed to assume that she's smart enough to ask that or have that line of questioning. So maybe next episode, from the get, she already has some sort of intel and knows who to start tracking and who to start looking into, type of thing. We could have a 30-second thing where she was just like, yeah, and we could even have her do another flashback and be like, yeah, I talked to him, and just have another scene of her just kind of chatting with him about like who hired you for this. But I just think like if she didn't, then she should potentially revisit some of those members and kind of ask like, hey, who is trying to get in touch with me? Who is trying to get my blood? Who's trying to get, in general, Hulk DNA, whether it be from her, whether it be from Bruce, who knows? But I'm just wondering, like, I'm hoping she took advantage of that already. And if she didn't, I'm hoping we get something that says she is taking advantage of that. Because I think it's really important to use all the resources she has. And I think it's important. I'm kind of hoping that the next 2 episodes are kind of maybe not like a 2-part finale, but I'm just hoping that they are, just like you said, they kind of lead to the bigger arc of the storyline in general.
Yeah, I'll prioritize it at least, like at the
Right.
very least. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, just like you said, also, I'm really hoping that Daredevil maybe has something to do with that main arc, and it's not just a bottle episode of Daredevil, and how cool is it that we have
Right.
Daredevil and stuff like that. So I am 100% behind you with that. I really hope that he is leading to that, because you know what? He's going to be tangled into so many other properties for Marvel that, it would make sense if if he also had some ties to whatever this big overarching plot is. And what if that plot continued throughout the other series that he's a part of? We just don't know yet who potentially is this boss that could potentially be, a factor in the other series that Daredevil is connected to, and hopefully She-Hulk is connected to.
Yeah, the growth of intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. And that could be like a behind the scenes thing until we get to New World Order.
Mhm.
Like, it could be really cool to have that kind of just weave its way through other, Marvel properties, just kind of in the background.
For sure.
And lay in all these breadcrumbs throughout. But as always, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 7? And what do you think, moving forward? How are we going to incorporate Daredevil? And what's going to happen in these final 2 episodes? Are we going to get pretty much main MCU plot line now moving forward? Or are we going to have like 2 more bottle episodes and really not have a super huge resolve from this whole thing? And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our video releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.